I'm going to take a kind of a cynical approach to this topic as moderator here, sort of as a provocation. And I have some history to bring to the table. In 1989, I was 7. I wrote a book called The Green Consumer. I wasn't really 7. That was actually the U.S. edition of a British bestseller called The Green Consumer Guide. That was, some of you, or many of you know John Elkington. And at the time in 1989 in the States, where I'm based, there was the first ever survey of consumers by a group called the Michael Peters Group. They're no longer in existence, but they were a New York and London-based marketing firm. And it came up with some amazing statistics that 89% of Americans said they would gladly make the greener purchase. 78% said they would pay up to 5% more for the privilege of doing so. And over the past 30 or so years, those numbers haven't really changed. And of course, neither have consumers' habits. And so we're still seeing that shopping carts look kind of how they look. And even though consumers continue to profess a certain level of aspirations, at least to buy green or whatever they call it. So much so that I wrote a piece about 10 years ago, and I said, it's called, "Who's the biggest greenwasher of them all?" And I said, if you think about who out there is talking the talk, not actually doing the work, making claims but not backing them up, really getting way ahead of their skis, as we sometimes say, it's consumers. And I think that's sort of where we want to start here. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that what I've concluded around sort of green consumers or environmentally conscious or sustainability-minded consumers, or however we call them, that sustainability sells to the extent that sustainability equals better. Now, better can be defined in lots of different ways: cheaper to buy, cheaper to operate, higher quality, locally sourced, recyclable, renewable, regenerative, better for my image, any number of things. And so I want to talk about how does the circular economy, circularity, and the products and services within that, start to become better, and how do we talk to consumers about that so that they really are walking their talk, I guess. So I want to start with you, Heather. Reckitt, I think most people know, the largest consumer products companies in Europe, global markets for a whole range of products that you all know and love. First of all, talk a little bit about, and I love the fact that your job title has both regulatory and growth.
Yes.
Which is, where I live on the other side of the pond, that's the kind of how does that work? But, I get that a lot of this is regulatory driven in Europe. So to talk a little bit about, first of all, what you do at Reckitt and sort of where Reckitt is on its circularity journey.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Joel. And what a pleasure to be here and learning with all of you today. What a privilege. At Reckitt, indeed, for regulatory, we do believe we are not a cost center, we are an advantage center. And so, yes, thank you for noticing that growth is in my title. So of course, our fundamental job is to make sure we are in compliance. But I consider that just the price of entry. What we really do day in and day out is we try and predict the future. We're looking to set the company up for resiliency in the future so that we aren't continually reformulating or changing our products. Actually, we're thinking 5, 10 years down the road right from the start and building that in what we do by design. Is it easy? It is not. We are fortunate that 20 million consumers every day choose to bring our products into their homes and their lives. We take that responsibility very seriously. It's driven by what's at the core of our compass, which is doing the right thing always, which I think is a lovely platform for today. Doing the right thing always, it's the right thing to do, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
And so for the regulatory team, indeed, sometimes we feel like the black hats or the Department of No. We prefer to say we're the Department of Yes and.
Yeah.
Yes, and.
Like, here comes Heather, look busy, right? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So are you, how much of this is the packaging? How much of this is the product itself? What are you working on?
We're working on all of it. We're starting first with the ingredients. We have an ambition to reduce our chemical footprint by 65%. Again, before we have to do this, before the regulatory change comes, we've actually got our own internal process that says better ingredients each time. Much like we heard from L'Oreal, we have an internal calculator where every product needs to be better than the one before it. That's how we hold ourselves accountable. The packaging is a critical piece, and I would say for the consumer, that's the piece maybe they have the most reaction to.
Sure.
They may not be chemists to understand as well what's inside, but if there's excess packaging or packaging they cannot recycle, we hear from them.
Yeah.
So it's in totality, the packaging and the ingredients. And I would say we heard earlier, the struggle we're having on packaging is not to make our packaging fully recyclable, no trouble. It's getting that PCR of good quality that won't interfere with that product experience, where we have more work to do.
Yeah, post-consumer recycled content,
Absolutely.
PCR, yeah. And before we move on to Mads, you mentioned the coming regulations, just as a
Yes.
level set, because not everybody may not be familiar. What is that? What are you referring to?
I like to say it's the war on chemistry, the chemophobia that is becoming the biggest trend, where science isn't static, and it shouldn't be. I would say Europe is at the center of re-evaluation of ingredients. The Green Deal and the chemical, the CSS, is going to be a sweeping piece of legislation that will have impacts globally. So we at Reckitt and the Reg team, we are really trying to get on the front foot to make sure we aren't making regrettable decisions, but more so we're formulating our products now knowing this is coming.
Right. So you're getting ahead of the regulation by doing things, in effect, on your terms.
Yes, we're trying to.
Yeah.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
So Bang & Olufsen is a very different company than Reckitt, because you're making durable products that last for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I have one of your radios in my kitchen, or it's a speaker system in the kitchen, and it's been a steady part of my world for a long, long time, so thank you for that. Talk a little bit about where, for maybe some people don't know Bang & Olufsen, so maybe give a minute on that, but also where are you in your journey on circularity? What are you working on?
Yeah, yeah. So we are a Danish audio and vision brand that has been around since 1925. So we're not a startup in that sense. We have been doing audio equipment for decades now. So, I mean, just to also challenge ourselves, right? Maybe it used to be like that we made products that were in people's home for 20 or 25 years. We have definitely also been challenged by the speed of technology and wireless connectivity and digitalization of music and so on. So I think we are more trying to get back to where we originally came from in the 80s and the 90s, and seeing some great opportunities in doing that. And if you ask me where we are on our circularity journey, then I would say, we're not that far, but on the other hand, we are further than we actually thought. Mm-hmm. And that's back to the fact that some of the values that our designs and principles have been built on back in the days, they are actually very much in line with the cradle-to-cradle way of thinking. So that was a great experience to understand that our starting point is maybe even better than we dared to hope.
So what's driving this at Bang & Olufsen?
I think first of all, I think it needs to sort of all start with the sort of a clear and transparent starting point. We are part of a consumer electronic industry that is in no way can be perceived as being long-term sustainable in the way that it's operating today, right? We are using a hell of a lot of materials, energy, creating increasing amount of waste if you look at the industry in general. So we have to recognize that we are part of that industry, and we are definitely part of that problem. We are maybe not the biggest player in terms of volume, but we do have some brand equity that could maybe help us to start looking at ways to see if we can help changing the industry through our designs and the way that we create products, but also to engage in new ways with consumers of today.
So what you're doing is entirely voluntary. You're not being pushed by any regulatory. There are certainly e-waste laws all over the world, particularly in Europe. How much of this is driven by the regulatory environment?
I think it's driven by also, not much actually. I mean, it's more about opportunities as we see it. We perceive ourselves as being a luxury audio brand with fairly high price points. So being a luxury brand also comes with authenticity and living up to expectations from consumers of today, but definitely also consumers for tomorrow. So we see this as a potentially a strong positioning exercise for us as well. If we can do high quality products that last, way beyond alternatives out there, then we believe that we are more relevant as a brand, looking at least our audience of people buying into our products.
Yeah. Part of the brand authenticity is, somebody once said, authenticity in business is everything. If you can fake that, you've got it made. Let's turn to Elise. I don't think probably a lot fewer people know Bay City. So, and you're not a direct to consumer company, but you're selling to folks who are selling to consumers. So give us a little the download on Bay City.
Sure. Bay City is one company, part of a group. Schmidt Group is also a fourth generation family company based in Germany, close to Hamburg. And one of Bay City's brand is De Tofato, that it's one of a kind in the world. We are 100% Cradle-to-Cradle certified fashion brand. It means a lot of work to launch constantly new products, but we are still setting the foundation stones for that work. But it's quite nice working on Cradle-to-Cradle products for years now. 5 years started the conversation, but the conversation started with one of our clients. For example, we are also working a lot with private label. So we are developing with De Tofato the innovations inside the company and giving them the possibility to the private label to work with that. And in this sense, kind of having this exchange directly to customer through our brands, B2C, B2B with our private labels, and then offering the customer the possibility of getting the products through our private label. It's just like many arms to work with in a different perspective, so small, big, and so on.
So you have your own brand, but you're selling you're white labeling to other brands. What kinds of products are these?
Fashion products.
It's all fashion. It's all fashion.
Textile items.
Right. So basically, it's a textile company
Exactly.
So it's interesting because we've got, first of all, 3 very different sectors, but also 3 sectors with significant challenges. Textile with waste and the water and the toxics and
regulations coming.
Regulations coming and the huge amount of, as it's called, I know you don't like to call it fast fashion, but that's the term that's used. So we're, things constantly every 6 or 12 weeks, a new line, and
even less. Okay,
well, it shows how much I know about fashion. Look at this. Can you have? I want to get to talking to the consumer part, but I'm sort of as we're still learning a little bit about your companies. Can you have a circular or sustainable company in a world of, we'll call it fast fashion?
Well, it depends of everything how you are doing that and how you are setting the structure afterwards. So if you can develop in the right way and then you have an alternative for that afterwards, so why not, right? So why should you say you have to take this for a long time? Depends of the products you are using, depends of the products you are talking about. We are talking about underwear. Should we repair that? Should we make a second-hand market for that? Not at all, right? Are we talking about a suit? That one that you have for such a long time, so that those are different perspectives we have to build for the market. So you can have fast products, you can have slow products, but they are different categories.
Yeah. So to have a slower product that has some circular potential, how does that change how you think about it, design it, source it, and sell it?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember one case where we are talking about long-lasting fibers, and then we are talking about cotton, and cotton is actually not a really long-last fibers. We should use cotton for short term products and then giving them the possibility to recycle, to reuse, depending on the product and so on. So it changed everything, like when you design it, what is the next phase that you have for that product, right? So working on repairability, that is coming now from the new paper from the EU Commission for the sustainable textile, circular textile papers. The right to repair, but to repair what? Which kind of textile item? Should I repair my socks? Or should they be then compostable? No?
Yeah.
So,
Good. Well, let's talk about the conversations that you're all having with consumers as it relates to circularity. Heather, first of all, how much or at all do you market? And I think one of the things that, let me step back a second. One of the things that ties us together is that all three of you have cradle-to-cradle certified products, right? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And so now that we know that, are you marketing this at all? How do you communicate this, and how are consumers responding?
Yeah, the consumer education piece is everything. We partnered with Cradle to Cradle for multiple reasons. One, the value set aligned very nicely. Secondly, it's a global certification. We had started down a path where we were doing more regional certifications, which was adding complexity. We're trying also to harmonize our formulas as much as possible. So that just made sense from an efficiency perspective. And then the third piece, the education piece, we're really keen to start partnering to help consumers sift through the masses of information that they are bombarded with to make a better choice. Joel, you spoke about the aspiration and the action gap. Yes, I want to live more sustainably. I don't know how to do it. That's the gap that we want to try and close with education around helping consumers make better choices.
So how do you do that?
Yeah. So, GlobeScan did a study at the end of last year and said that consumers get 25% or less of the information from the actual product itself. They're getting it from social media, they're getting it from friends and family, they're getting it from advertising, and so on. So we're very careful on how we use that. We always link it to behavioral studies and behavioral sciences to give consumers, not bombarding them with information and certainly not greenwashing, but giving them, here's a daily habit you could introduce and here's the consequence.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, my favorite one, it's a personal one, is with our dishwashing brand Finish. We did a study with the University of Leeds, and we realized that when consumers would do a typical hand wash of their dishes, they would use upwards of 50 liters of water, which is quite...
One hand wash, 50
One hand wash, 50 liters of water.
Just singing happy birthday all those times.
Exactly. Not washing the hands for good hygiene, but washing the dishes. When you use the EcoCycle on your automatic dishwasher, you use 10 liters because the water is recycled. Yeah. So that's quite a savings. And when you bring a product like Finish, which we're very proud of, has the right chemistry, not too much, just the right amount. You don't need to pre-rinse your dish. We found this was when we went into consumers' homes, they were using their dishwasher, but they were spending a lot of time with the tap running. I see some heads nodding. So we did a campaign. We started in Turkey, one of the most water-stressed areas, and we did a Finnish campaign on skipping the rinse. And we educated the children. And if you've seen the advertisement, it's about the child teaching the parents to not pre-rinse these dishes. And so that's the kind of messaging we use. Of course, we're bringing you a superior product. We want you to use Finish, but we also want you to change the behavior, and you'll see the consequences through water savings.
That feels like a slog, in the terms it's a one at a time, parent to child or parent to parent, whatever.
Yes.
I'm just curious how you see cycles of business versus cycles of personal change versus natural cycles are all very different wavelengths, and getting consumers to change and getting at the scale, scope, and speed that were needed. How do you do that? And how do you make sure that this is actually? Yeah. And can you measure success too?
Yep, all great questions. So all of our brands have a purpose. They are all linked to at least one of the SDGs. But we don't necessarily scream and shout that purpose. It'll come through like the Finnish example that I just gave. If I give another one, those of you who are from North America, you will know Lysol. For those in the rest of the world, it's Dettol. Another behavioral change, and it was first and foremost during the pandemic, is hand hygiene, the importance of hand hygiene to protect you and your loved ones. We did a study, again, because we want to use data, that you removed just as many germs by using cold water to wash your hands than hot water. This was news to me. I've stopped using hot water to wash my hands, and they're just as clean. So feel free to shake hands with me. The point is, we do it choicefully by brand where we can link it to a consumer habit. Yeah. If we can't do that simply in consumer-friendly language, we don't do it. So we might be doing lots of great work on the formulation, on the packaging, but we don't scream and shout about it. Yeah. So we're choiceful. Yeah. Mads,
how is messaging the cradle-to-cradle certification and in general having conversations with your customers?
Actually, to be honest, not that much. Because that is not necessarily the purpose of doing it, for now at least. We are the first consumer electronic brand to basically have a product certified, and that also means that in our industry, sort of the awareness around the full standard and the certification is, at least in some areas, limited. But it doesn't matter for us, because we actually would like to use it to get started with, because we have only certified one product now. So it is to help us put structure to our journey here, because if we start to look closer at our product system, not just the object that we are creating, and breaking it down into these many hundred components that we have in a fairly high-tech product, it can be overwhelming with all of the complexity. So we have used the framework to really start get sort of things into structure. It has been key for us to understand that the principles are based on science, right? That gives us the sort of the comfort of knowing that if we go in these directions, then we are on the right path. It's not dictating how to solve it, which I think is great, because we are creative people, so we like to find the solutions. It's setting direction that gives us sort of a clear challenge to solve. And I think the way that we actually are talking about this is we're not using the cradle to cradle or even sustainability. We're actually talking about longevity and potentially circularity. Because we also have, again, back to our starting point, it doesn't make sense for now to talk about sustainable electronics. So the best we can do right now is to extend the life of things that already exist, and design future products that are built to last, not just in terms of durability, but most importantly also in terms of consumer relevance, right? Because we can only do so much in our design processes. If the end result will be that consumers will not use the products after 2 years, they will be put in a drawer or just collect dust. Yeah. Then we didn't really create something that was a real alternative to buying a new product, right? Yeah. So it's a platform for us to get structure. It's a source of innovation, because we can now start to see where we need to be going. And then, of course, it gives us the credibility, at least, also, when we talk about this, that we have actually done an extra effort here with the speaker that we have designed to make it fit for a circular future.
Yeah. And in designing this, how have you changed the speaker? What's different about it now than it was before?
We have really focused a lot on modularity in the design, because what we wanted to do, we actually asked ourselves, what if we should create a wireless speaker that should be relevant for 10 years or beyond a decade? where are the barriers? What do we need to do? And then we did a lot of research to understanding at least our target audience on what makes people buy new stuff. And some of the things that comes into play is very practical sometimes. Through a lifetime or a period of 10 years, your life situation changes. You move to a different apartment or to a bigger house or whatever. So your need for sound changes over time. So how can we make something that is flexible so that it can serve more purposes than just one? And so that was a clear starting point. Then we also know that our customers are very designed and interior design oriented. So how could we allow them to express their personal taste? So customization has really been an element put in here. Yeah. And then of course we have the more classical ones, right? We have a battery speaker here. There are limitations in battery life with the current technologies. So how could we make battery packs easily replaceable by consumers? Repairability, obviously, something can go wrong. We can sometimes need to replace a part. That's also something that we can address through modularity. And then I think the biggest sort of barrier of all is technology obsolescence. We are very technology-heavy industry, right? So how can we think, or rethink hardware and software in new ways so that we can try to compensate with software updates to changing standards of connectivity? And how can we even also make hardware components replaceable, so that we can adapt to a future that we don't know anything about yet?
So Elise, you said you've got both your own products and others. Where is this? First of all, what's certified? Where have you deployed the cradle-to-cradle certification?
Well, we have what we say our lab, our brand, De Tofato, where we really test the boundaries inside the company, where we take, let's say, the main products, our expertise, and try to see where the challenges are on designing for cradle-to-cradle, and the circularity thought that's afterwards, return, recycle, whatever, second use, and so on. And with that, we can also offer the private label, as I mentioned. So we have the certification for our own brand, and now we are also offering the certification to one of our clients as well. So we set already the foundation and said, oh, look, we can do this already. Would you like to do? And they just said yes. And now we are going for the, let's say, for the private label certification.
Yeah. And how are you talking about this to consumers or equipping your private label customers to talk to their consumers?
Yeah, there are two. Yeah, exactly. There are just two different channels. In our brand, De Tofato is really in an organic way. So mentioning we are one of a kind, 100% cradle-to-cradle certified fashion brand, it says already a lot. So to those who are already known or familiar with the cradle-to-cradle concept, it's just like, wow, yes. So we don't have to explain much more, and then it's getting like the conversation further. But I used to say that the main customers we do have, or as a brand we do have, is our colleagues, that we have different brands inside the company, which we also can offer some products. So I have constantly conversation with the design team, with the product management team from different brands, that we say, look, I can offer you already this. Can you use in your brands? So we have this then multiplied internally. And in the same case with the customers, the white label customers, then they can communicate. And then for sure, those clients, they come to us and ask, okay, what it means? Now, what can I communicate to my client? What can I say? Can I say that it's 100% safe? Can I say that's biodegradable? Or is that recyclable? Or, then you give like the parameters that they communicate clearly what it means to have a cradle-to-cradle product in their collections as well.
So yeah, you started to answer this question, and maybe that is the answer, but I'm going to ask all three of you, starting with you, Elise, what have you learned about how to effectively communicate circularity, cradle to cradle, any of these things to consumers, what do they want to hear? What do they actually hear? What do they understand, and what don't they understand?
What is always necessary is like to make easy examples, understandable examples. So you give like soft, easy, understandable daily life examples to make like a clear picture of what you are doing in the background.
Maj, you said you're not speaking to consumers so much, but so I'm just wondering how you communicate even internally and talk about these things in a way that people get and want to, and understand enough to the point that they say, yes, we want to be part of that. We want to play.
So we are definitely communicating to consumers, but not so specifically on the cradle-to-cradle standard.
Yeah.
I think we are trying to take an approach where we would talk the same language as we know our customers are into, really, understanding what they like about us and what we provide them. And that is very much about experiences.
Right.
It's very much about emotions and attachments to our designs. So in that sense, we have an interesting starting point to communicate, because if we can provide sound experiences and interaction experiences that are so great that our customers will just love them to go on and on, then we have the pathway for longevity already there, right? So I think it's very much about how we don't want to talk too technical, but I think we need to talk into a more holistic messaging, because it's being more circular or more long-lasting or more sustainable is not an isolated thing. It's part of the full package, the full experience. Yeah. So that is what we try to do, and we're actually trying to promote a little bit more of a slow culture, actually, because we invest a lot of our energy and capabilities in striving for perfection in our products when it comes to materials that needs to be durable, craftsmanship that is so detailed sometimes that it's crazy. So that's why we want people to keep using our products as long as possible. So, and then the way that consumers can articulate this can be very different. We have many of our customers more talking into a peace of mind kind of thinking. So I don't want to relate to new electronic products every year. I don't want to spend time on understanding all of the specs and searching around for the latest and the greatest. But I want it to work, and I want it to be great, and it should fit my needs. And if I then can keep it and don't need to revisit that decision before a decade, then it's basically just more convenient and more meaningful. So there are different ways to talk into some of the same topics, you can say. So
Elise company is talking more about health. It sounds like you're talking about equating this more to innovation and experience. Is that fair to say?
I think it's very much fair to say, because the best way that we can communicate who we are, that will be through our product designs. They are very visual, right? So that is actually the best way of interacting with our customers. And I don't know if you saw the image here. We had the turntable on the image there. That's actually basically an experiment where we took back 50-year-old turntables from 1972. And then we basically developed.
Table for you people under 40 is a thing that we used to play something that we called records. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, but the whole idea here was actually that one thing.
I was playing with that when I was kid.
One thing is that we are designing, future products, and that comes maybe with a promise of longevity and circularity, which is great. But we actually also needed to go back in time to see if we can find evidence actually for longevity, but also us being able to provide the circularity. So that was why the project with the turntables, it was super important, because we did that in parallel. Started to think about how to get things back. We found out ways to upgrade the technology and even remachine the 50-year-old aluminium components in the product. Wow. And the turntables, they were sold at a price of €10,000, and they were gone in minutes. So it also tells us that there are ways to also trigger maybe the common perception of what is value of a consumer electronic product. We as an industry have been spending a lot of time educating consumers that things cannot last, and you need to get rid of old technology and so on. And the price tag on the product, the product is worth zero when you leave the retail, right? So we would like to prove that there could be a different way. And that's where the cradle-to-cradle principle can help us, because if we design our products to actually be able to do that 10 years from now, then we start to have something that comes much, much closer to a circular solution for the industry.
Yeah. Heather, talking to consumers, are you marketing circularity, cradle to cradle, sustainability? Is it on product labels? You said it is a little bit on a few, but how are consumers reacting, and what's that conversation like? And do they understand what you're actually telling them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're getting started on our cradle to cradle journey. We have our first product certified with many more in the pipeline.
What is that? What's the product?
It's a finish.
Oh, that's Finish.
Yeah, we started with
Sorry.
our brand Finish. But across our other Harpic, Vanish, Woolite, they're following on the heels of Finish. We're not yet putting them on label for. We heard from Marina at L'Oreal. We put the fast and fast-moving consumer goods, and we certainly don't want to, when a product formulation changes, perhaps to get us to a higher level of certification. We certainly don't want to be in the situation where we're scrapping labels as a consequence. So we're doing it online. To communicate it, and also, some of our retail partners are bricks and mortar, but also online retailers are asking for this, so you can get.
What are they actually asking for?
So, there's a very famous online retailer that has their own pledge friendly that are certain certifications.
Starts with A and ends with Amazon.
So we're doing that. One, that's a way to reach our consumers and to help them navigate if sustainability is something that they are saying they want to do and they're putting the actions to it. Right. Something like that can help them make that choice.
So in this case, your customer is the retailer. Yes. That is not demanding it, but saying, if you do this, we will put this in this special part of our store. Exactly. And therefore give you some kind of potential advantage.
Exactly. And the broader that gets and the wider that scale becomes, a more global, even better. Yeah. If there's dedicated space in your favorite shop, perfect. That can only help. It will help us, of course, but it will also help the consumer navigate to that. For our categories, consumers are less brand loyal than they used to be. I mean, I think of my grandmother that bought the same liquid laundry detergent her whole life, never would have changed. It's not like that anymore. So we have to, segment our consumers and give them what they want. Indeed, speaking about chemistry, doesn't work for most consumers, but for those who want that, we're using QR codes, we're using ingredient transparency panels on a voluntary basis. If you want that information, it's there. Mm-hmm. But really for us, speaking to the consumers is linking it to a habit.
And what are the feedback loops you have in terms of knowing that what they're getting and not getting, and then adjusting, recalibrating based on that?
Yeah. I mean, our consumers have so many different ways to get in touch with us. It's a blessing and a curse, to be honest. We read the reviews. We do a lot of consumer insight data so that they can tell us. We put the products in their hands. Is this claim meaningful to you? Yes, no. If yes, why? Tell us more. So the whole concept of consumer science and linking that into our innovation stream is super important for us.
But I don't know that consumers always know what they want.
That's a good thing.
There's that old Henry Ford line from, who...
Faster horse.
If I'd asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Yeah. And in that case, he said, well, no, I actually have a car that no horses involved. Yeah. So how do you know that consumers are even, because they probably want something that's non-toxic, whatever that means. Yeah. They may want something that's recycled or recyclable, whatever that means. Yeah. And these are, and yet they're the ones with the vague knowledge, and yet they're the first to call you on something that somehow isn't perfect. So how do you talk to them about this and make sure that they're on this journey with you?
It goes back to what Stefan kicked us off with. Are we asking the right questions? So, we can, learn as we go. If we're getting vague answers, we're asking vague questions. Yeah. So we get really granular for deep understanding. So asking, it says non-toxic. That's not enough. It's, more so the consumers, we need to start with, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What are they really worried about? What do they want this product to do for them? And what are their drivers for purchase? Is it, I want it at the cheapest price, it's going to work, and I don't have to worry about it? Great. But then there's other segments of our consumers that I want to know what's inside. I want to know what's not inside. I want to see less plastic. I want to see a refillable solution. So the whole consumer science journey is something we're learning as we go, but really starting to bring that into our innovation thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to just sort of keep going on the theme of what are you learning? Maz, what are you learning here what do you know now that you sort of wish you knew a year ago as if you talk about, designing and putting these products together and getting everybody who needs to be on board?
I think we have learned a lot, both sort of upstream in the way that we work with partners from the very sort of beginning of the production and development process. If you just look at our history, we used to be a company that made everything ourselves back in the days. So having internal production of every single component, which was great, because then you knew exactly how they were made and where they came from and what was inside of the materials. Over the years, we have moved away from that, like many other companies, and been more sort of sourcing-based or partner-based in our setup. And having such a setup in a global context is it's maybe convenient and flexible in the sense that you can scale up and down, and you can get access to interesting competencies, technologies, and so on, fast. But it comes with the cost of maybe sort of reduced insights down to the last details of every component. So that has definitely been a very good journey for us here for the last 1.5 years looking into this, because we have basically used this as an opportunity, certifying our first speaker to assess the setup around that.
Yeah.
And definitely we will now start to pull things a little bit more back, and we will definitely also have or want to be more specific in what we require from our partners. So that has definitely been some learnings that I would have expected us to step into, but that had just been confirmed, definitely. Then I actually think that, more downstream towards consumers, it has actually been an extremely, positive experience, because I have been around in many different countries for the last 1.5 years to tell stories about, the speaker and the turntable, and I just continuously see consumers being excited about that, because what they actually would love to do is to be able to pass on some of their products to next generations. They're a little bit sort of fed up with sort of the chase against, now we need a 2% improved performance, and then I'll have to throw away my old thing to buy the next, and so on. So it's just confirming me that something is really changing, at least with the audience that we are serving. I'm not saying that we are necessarily, for everybody, and our customers are maybe not reflecting the everybody, but strong movement towards just, we want things to last. We would rather buy fewer things, and then we'll expect more of what we buy.
And product longevity is very much a part of circularity. So that's
it is, at least in our philosophy as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lisa, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
Well, I had a really positive surprise from the beginning till now, that our conventional supply chain is really willing to participate. That was a big surprise. I thought that would be much more challenging, but I realized that they also see their business opportunity or the need to change. So that was a really, really good surprise. And
what kind of change are you referring to?
Well, when we are working on all the structure and someone comes and say, now you have to pay attention to each detail, and you have to go down and spread this way of working, this procedure to the whole company. The guy that's using the screen printing to print something in your T-shirt cannot use the same chemical that he's buying on the corner to clean it. So you have to tell him. No? But to tell him, you have to know that it's not part of the whole process. So that our supply chain is really like giving their blood to make the change with us, and offer this possibility to offer to our clients as well, and internally to our brands, new products.
The suppliers are more willing than you thought to
Yes,
go
yes,
along.
yes. This was a really, really positive surprise.
Right. But I want to ask you each one final question. I'm going to start with you, Elise, which is when we come back, the four of us, to Circular Shift 2024 in 2 years.
Okay.
How do you want this, hope that this conversation will have changed for your company?
How do I see in 2024 the whole situation?
How will you be talking and how do you hope to be talking about circularity in 2024?
Well, I just then in 2 years I have launched the next collection with recycled, healthy materials we did from our old collections. So this is like the thing I would like to offer in 2 years.
Great. Mads?
I think in 2 years that I really hope that, of course, we have more products certified. We also have started to find better solutions across the many product categories that we're operating in, because creating a headphone and a speaker for the home, that's two different things. So definitely I expect that. And then I also expect that we will start to be able to really take advantage of the design elements that we are putting into the designs already now, because the idea is that the modularity that I talked about here should actually enable many more opportunities for us in the future. It just needs to come along with a business model that is profitable, and it also needs to come together with great consumer experiences. So I hope I can tell you more about that 2 years from now.
I look forward to that. Yeah. Heather, you get the last word here.
No.
Lucky me. I have 2 wishes. So the first is that I'll be able to tell you that consumers are choosing our products because they're cradle-to-cradle certified. And the second, it's more of an industry wish, is that we have more disruptive innovation instead of the typical blue juice in a bottle, as I often say. And we have consumer acceptance of that, of concentrates, of refills. That's what I'm hoping for in the next 2 years.
Great. Well, I will look forward to that conversation. Please join me in thanking our panel.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.